Okay, that's working. We have to just verify the you're using test data. Activate. Nope. Okay. As long as we're here, then we're okay. Okay. So the first thing that we need to do, we need to get the keys. Okay. The Stripe secret. After getting the Stripe secret, we go back to our server. Yeah, okay. Let's see, where can we find it? Not here though. Home. It should be on in home. Okay. So secret key. This is the key that we require. So we're going to copy this key. That's the key that you're supposed to put in your .env file over here. Okay. Paste the key. You save that. So that's the first step. After saving, we need to initialize a Git repository over here. So here we are not including all modules, so that's okay. So here we're going to run git init. Okay, so our GitHub repository has been initialized. Now we need to add all. After adding all, then we need to push this. We need to commit first. First commits. We need to publish the repository. So I'm going to give it a name that I can remember. Not YouTube, but like say course payment server, or like that. Okay, so I'm going to make it a private repository. I don't make my my repos public, so it's a private repo. So you should do the same because I'm pushing with the .env file. Okay, so we push this to GitHub. So we just need to not open the repo per se, but you need a Railway account now to go ahead and host this server. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to railway.com .app, not .com, and I'm going to create a new project. After creating a new project, I'm going to deploy from GitHub. So it's going to load the repos over here. But if your repositories are not loaded, or if it's your first time, then you need to come here and configure GitHub app. Okay, you just need to click configure GitHub app. Then you're prompted to choose the account that you want to use. So I'm going to go with this one, the first one. Put your password, and then you can authorize Railway to either access only one repository or to access all your repositories that you have in your GitHub. So I'm going to go with all repos. That's the setting that I put before. So there are not going to be any changes. This is just to show you how to do it. Okay. After that, let's just click and we look for our repository, cost payment server, right? And we click deploy now. So that's how we deploy our repository. So it's going to take a little bit to deploy, but after it's done, then we are going to just go through some certain steps and redeploy again, because we need to change some few things. So if we come back to our payment server, right, this is our server. If we visit our routes, Stripe, in here we need to change these endpoints. We do have two endpoints that we need to change, these ones, right? So these ones are from my old server, okay? So these ones needs to be changed to the new server, right? And the same URL that we're getting from Verware is the one that we're going to use to create webhooks, okay? So let's do it step by step. We host the server first. Okay, our server has been hosted. Let's see our deploy logs. Okay, everything is running well. We don't have a problem. So what we need to do over here, we need to come to settings, if I'm not mistaken. So in settings, we need to, not settings, is it settings? It should be settings. We need to generate the URL. Probably they changed the interface. Okay, we need to generate a domain. So we're going to generate a public domain. Okay, this domain is the one that we're going to use. So let's just go ahead, click on it. We need to copy it from here. HTTPS cost payment server production blah 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 blah. Okay, we copy this, close, we go back to our server, and we need to replace this particular path, the URL, with the one that we just attained from our newly hosted server. Okay, we do the same for both. Okay, so we are done with this part. Now that we do have this URL, we go back to our Stripe. So we need to go back to Stripe. Okay, in Stripe, we need to go to developers, and in developers, we need to go ahead and create a webhook. Okay, so to create a webhook, we add an endpoint, right? So here we need the endpoint, URL. So this one is going to be a little bit tricky. I did forget a little bit. So you have your URL, right? Like the one that we copied, and you need to add slash webhook. This slash webhook is going to communicate with this endpoint that we have over here. Okay, so don't get confused. So we need to access this from Stripe, this endpoint from Stripe. So here, add an endpoint, paste our URL, and here we have to add webhook like that. We need to select events. I'm going to choose quite a few. Okay, so account balance. Let's go with balance. Some of them we might not use them, and we need cash balance, charge, checkout, customer. Let's see. Not identity. We need payment in turn. How many do we have right now? We've chosen quite a few. Payment link, payment method. Nah. For payouts, we're going to do that later. Setup intent. Okay, we can go ahead and add events. Probably we do have quite a few, more than enough. Add endpoint. Okay, so this is going to be our endpoint. Now we need to go ahead and get the signing secret. Copy the signing secret. and we're going to put our signing secret over here. Right. So you can put it in .env as well, in your .env, but I'm just going to put it here. I don't want to cause a little bit of confusion. You can put it in .env and we can access it the same way. Either way, the difference is the same, but the fact that it's a highly secure. Okay, so now that we made these changes, everything is good to go. It's good to go. So what we can do, we can go ahead and push this to our GitHub repo. Okay, webhooks like that, and then we just commit. After committing, then our server, our deployment is going to restart again, since we have some new data. Okay, a new commit. So it's going to commit. So we have to wait for this to finish. After this is finished, then we need to go ahead and start working on our Flutter side. Okay, so in Flutter we're going to do quite a few things. The first one is we need to do these payments, but we need to change the address so that we can get an address which is a little bit closer to our restaurant. Our address has to be a little bit closer so that we won't pay a huge amount of money, like 3,000 for just transportation. Okay, so we are done here, and that's all for our payment saver. So we still have the URL. So what we can do with the URL, we can just go ahead to our Flutter application and go to controllers. Instead of controllers, no, let's leave it like that. Down here, let's paste. Oh no, that's not what we need. We need this URL. Okay, that's what we need, but we need to access this endpoint inside of routes. Okay, so it's going to be like this. Okay, since we have our URL, we do have our URL, and we need to get to this endpoint. And this is the data that we're going to require from Stripe. So we're going to push cut data in the user ID. So let's cut this as it is here, and we go back to our Flutter application. And let's paste it here, since we are going to use it in a little bit. And what we need to do, we need to visit our auto controller. So right on our auto controller, some couple like lessons ago, like when we're focusing on this page that we do have over here. So what we need to do, we need to continue. Okay, so we need to create a function that we're going to use to make a payment, right? So we need to just go ahead right below this create order function that we created, right? We need to create another function, and this one is going to be a void function. We're going to call it payment function. So our payment function is going to require an argument, and our argument is going to be a string, and we need to call it payment. Okay, so this is going to be the payment, the data that we're going to send to our payment server. Okay, that part we're going to do with it in a little bit when we call this function. It has to be asynchronous. And inside, we need to set loading to true. So we already have loading, so we can reuse the same variable over and over since we're in the same controller. Okay. And down here, we're going to have a URL is equals to URI pass. So URI.parse. So here we're not using this one. We're going to be using the one that we're getting from our server, right? Our hosted server. Okay, that's going to be our endpoint. So here it's supposed to be dot app. Okay, let's visit the server again. We might make a horrendous mistake over there that will cost us a little bit of time. So what's the name of, no, that's not the name of the server. That was the name of the server. Okay, so this is our endpoint, but if we visit our index.js, if we come down, we're accessing it through Stripe. So it's supposed to be .app/stripe/create checkout session, right? Okay. So here it's supposed to be Stripe like that. And then we create the checkout session. So we're done with our URL. The next thing, we need to go ahead and have a try-catch block. Try-catch block. So in our we need to create a variable where we're going to store our response, and our response is going to await. We need to make a post request. We need to await. It's supposed to be http.post, right? .post. And here we do have our URL. That's the URL that we do have here. So that's the first thing. The next thing that we're going to require is headers. It's supposed to be headers over here. So our headers, they're supposed to be, yes, we're going to use the content type application JSON. Okay, so after our headers, we're going to require the body itself. So we're going to have a body over here, and our body is going to be the string that we're getting from our argument, which is payment, right? Like that. So that's all that we need over here. So once we have all this, we need to go ahead and check whether we have a successful response. Okay, so if response.status code is equals to 200, then we need to go ahead and do something. So the first thing that we need to do, we need to capture the response.body, not the body, the response body. Okay, so we're going to have a variable with the name URL data, because whenever we make a payment and that payment is successful, we're going to receive a URL from our, no, not successful per se, but when we hit our endpoint, when we hit our webhook, we're supposed to receive a URL that's going to redirect us to where we're supposed to go. All right. So here, that's what we are going to capture, and it's going to come from response body, but we need to decode the data first. Response.body over here, and we need to close it. Okay. So once we have this URL data, we need to set it somewhere. Okay, so we need to create a variable right on top, and our variable is going to be an rx string. It's supposed to be an rx string because it has to be observable. Name, we give it a name. Payment, it's supposed to be payment URL is equals to an observable string. Okay, so to make our value observable, we use OBS, but this is supposed to be .obs outside. Okay, so here we are going to get our private variable using this function, this get function that we do have over here, and we are going to set using this setter that we do have right at the bottom. So this is what we need to do. Whatever we're going to capture from our response body, we want to store it inside of the payment URL, because that's the variable that we're going to use to update our UI. Okay, so here we're going to just go ahead, not set per se, that's not in the way. Or we can just go ahead and just say payment URL using the setter. Okay, so it's supposed to be set payment URL over here. Loading to false. We need to remove that. Set loading to false. Let's have finally down at the bottom. Set loading to false like that. So that's all that we need to do in this section. Next, now that we have all this, we need to go ahead and call this function, but this function, we're not going to call it in a page, but what we are going to do is to go ahead and use it inside of this create order function, right? So let's get rid of that. So this create order function, we're going to also require an order item. So that's something that we can do in a little bit, and then we can call our function, because we need to call our function right here at the bottom, so that after we create an order, we have the order ID. Now we can just make the payment from our controller, and the UI will still change. Okay, right here we need to push the order data as well in here. So what we can do, we can go to the order page. We still got our order page open. So we need to go where we are pushing this data, the order request data, right? This is the data that we want to push inside of this controller as an argument over here, right? So what we can do, we can copy the model name over here, go back to our controller. In our controller, since we need to receive this order request data, so we're going to receive it as item over here. So we need to import this order request, right? So since we require this data, that means in our order page, we need to pass it over here as well. So we're going to pass order, right? That's the first thing that we need to do. So we have this data inside of our function. We can access all the data related to this order that we're creating, okay? Because we need to use some of the data to push that data to our payment server. That's why we are doing this. Okay, the next thing that we need to do, if we go back to our controller, we need to go ahead and get the response, because when we push this, we're going to get the response over here, right? But we need to deconstruct the data that we get. So we need to create a model, one model. So this model, I've already set it apart. It's in our files. It's over here, okay? Order response. So we're going to copy these two models, order response, not cart response, but we need cart request somehow. So we'll do with that in a little bit, okay? So we need to not cut, but copy order requests, and we go to order response, not order request, go to our models. We can paste it over here. So what we can do, let's see whether we can, yes, we can bring that folder over here. Okay, we have order response. We need to drag and drop this file to our models. Okay, so we do have our order response. Okay, so we have these, we have the boolean, we have the message, and we have the ID. So if we visit our backend, whenever we are creating an order in our order controller, we're sending back the status, the message, and the order ID. Okay, so this is just the data that we use to create that model. Okay, so don't be surprised like what kind of data are we using. This data is the data that we're using. So if you want to create this as a, just create a model with it, you can do the same process. Copy the data, go to, let me just use ChatGPT over here. Okay, so we can say create Postman payload. So once we have our payload, then we can use that payload in QuickType to create the model that we want. It's taking a little bit. Oh man. Okay, that's what we need. We need this payload, right? So copy the payload, and you can paste the payload here. After pasting the payload, then we can give it a name. Okay, so it's going to be like this. Okay, so you can give it a name. So our name is supposed to be order response. That's how we create the model. So it's the same. It's identical to the one that we have. So we're not going to copy this data. If you take a look, go back to our application, not backend, but the front end. Front end, we can just pull the simulator, not the simulator. The name is Foodly. Okay, we can put this. So it's the same as this one, right? So we're done with this part. Next, here we're going to just deconstruct the data. Okay, so we're going to say it's supposed to be order response from JSON. Order response order, let's not call it order here, we can call it data is equals to order response dot from JSON. So here we need to pass our response.body, right? And we can close it. So once we have this data, now we can be able to access the data and get our order ID. Okay, so this order ID, we can just create a string in here. String, no, it should be order ID is equals to data dot order ID. So now we have this order ID. We can use it to push it to our payment server. So here, what we can do, let's get rid of that snake bar because we need to create our card item and send our request here. So the first thing that we need to create card item, right? The one that we're going to send to Stripe. And we need to have our payment function here. So that's what we need to do. Okay. So now our main focus is to create not to create, but to just import the cut model, the model that we're going to use to create the data that we're going to send to our postman. Not to our postman, but to our payment server. My bad. This folder, we have another file with the name payment. This is the model that we want, right? That's the model that we want to use inside of the model that we want to use here to create the data that we want to send to our payment server, right? So let's go ahead. You have to just drag and drop it. The payment request model. This is the model and this is a payment page. We'll import it in a little bit. But if you open this payment requests model, okay, it's just, we do have our class name over here. The first thing that we're going to require is the ID, the user ID of the person who's making the order. And the next thing that we're going to require is a list of cart items. So you're not limited to one item. If you want to go ahead and expand to have multiple cart items per order, then it's possible, right? Over here. That's why we do have a list, okay? And we have our cart item here. So our cart item is going to require the name. This is the ID of the item that we're going to use, not the ID of the food item that we are pushing, okay? So in this scenario, we're going to have one item, not multiple items. That's why we do have just name and it's a string, not a list string. And we do have an ID. This is an order ID. We do have a price. This is the price of the item. And we do have the quantity, okay? And over here, we do have the restaurant ID. So this is the data that we need to push to our payment server. So let's go ahead, close this for a minute. Down here, we need to create this payment model. The data, we need to just put the data. So we're going to call it payment. Okay, is equals to payment. Okay, so here we do need our user ID and we need our cart item. So this is an array of cart items, right? So we need to have an array in here. Let's go ahead and close it. So first, let's deal with our user ID. So our user ID is going to come from the item that we are pushing to this particular function. Okay, that's why we push the item so that we can access this data. And down below, we need to create our cart item. Okay, so our cart item is going to be a cart item We can create it outside or create it inside, either way. But since it's one item here, I prefer to just create it from within. Okay, so we need the name, the ID, the price, and the quantity. Okay, so let's start with the name. We say the name is going to be the full ID. Okay, so the ID, we're going to get it from item dot. It's supposed to be, we need to access order items, and from order items we're going to get the first item from that list, because it's a list of items, right? And we're going to get the full ID. That's going to be our name, and the ID of the order, that's what we need over here. So this one is going to be order ID, since we already have it over here. Okay, and for the price is going to come from the item as well. So we need to access the item dot, here is supposed to be grand total. Okay, I think our grand total is of a different type, and our quantity over here, just one, it'll be okay, since everything is handled. We need restaurant ID, item dot restaurant ID. Okay, so we need to fix our grand total, so it's a double, right? We're pushing it as a double, so here we need to convert it to string, and we need to just have 2 decimal places over here. So now we have all the necessary data to make the payment. So down below, what we're going to do, we're going to create a string, and we're going to call it payment data. Okay, so this payment data is going to, we're going to just convert this model data to string. Okay, and that's why we are accessing this payment to JSON, and we are pushing this particular model, converting it to string, and we have our payment data over here. So now that we have this payment data, what we can do, we can call our payment function. Okay, so we said our payment function requires payment data. This string is the data that we have over here. So when we're calling this payment function, we need to pass the data, and then everything else remains the same, because we are done working on the payment function already. So this is what we need to do. So here, okay, either way, it's okay. Let's leave it like that. So now our main task is to go ahead and just display our payment screen, because we are not yet displaying our payment screen. So our payment screen is supposed to be displayed in this order page, right? In this order page, but we don't have our payment screen as yet. So it's over here. I've already created it. It's a little bit tedious, but let's just go ahead and open it, and I'll just walk you through what we need to do to get everything working. So in our order, we need to just drag and drop this page, put it in here. Okay, so let's get rid of whatever we have, or whatever causing the errors, the imports that we have on top. So we need our order controller here. Okay, so our order controller is the same controller as this one. So we need to just copy the name, come here, change the name, and we import our order controller. And down here, order controller dot payment URL. Let's see. When we imported, this is our auto controller. I'm sure we do have payment URL. Oh, okay. So here we're supposed to set payment URL. We need a setter. Okay. And we need these two screens, success and failed. Okay. So these ones are going to be a little bit different, and not different per se, but they're just going to be screens. Whenever you make a payment and it's successful, then we're going to display the success screen. And whenever we do have an error, we're going to display the payment failed screen. So these ones, you can design them the way that you want. I'm going to provide them, but these ones you can design them the way that you want, because they are no biggie. It is just like a big button after payment, but you need to have like a specific design that you need. You need to tailor it in a way that you want. Okay. So let me go ahead, provide these ones for you, and then we can just go ahead and finish with the payment. So this page is a little bit too difficult. Not too difficult, but this code, it's web code. So what we're just doing over here on changes, right? On URL change, whenever we get our URL, if our URL contains checkout success, that means our payment has been successful because we're hitting this endpoint, right? So what we need to do, we need to push the success page. When it contains cancel, that means we're directed to the cancel page, the one that we do have in our payment server. And that also means our payment has failed. So we need to display payment failed screen. Okay. And here, this is the page that we're going to be just displaying inside of our order page. This screen is going to be a web page that shows Stripe for our payment. Okay. So that's all that we need to do in here. So let's go ahead and take care of these pages, and then we can go ahead and finish up with our payment. So for the successful payment and payment failed, these pages, they have to be imported somehow. So these ones are going to be provided. So if you go to your starter, like Flutter Fully starter files, we do have these files inside of payments. We have these two pages, right? So you just need to drag and drop them wherever you want to put them, right? So for instance, I have like these ones. Okay, I've already dragged and dropped them, but just to be certain, what I'm going to do, I'm going to, let me just go ahead and delete these ones, move them to trash, and come back to the payment folder. Okay, so I'm going to select both of the files, and I'm going to drag and drop them in here. Okay, so we need to go ahead and get rid of these imports so that we can have cleaner imports. So first we need our auto controller. Okay, so the name might be different, so you need to go ahead and take note. Our main screen is our entry point, so you need to import that. After importing, you need the reusable text and you need the app style. Okay, so we're done with these imports. This one is the only one left, so we need to go to our controllers, orders. So we need to check the name. The name is orders controller, so that's the name that we are going to use over here. Okay, and we need to import the controller as well. So here, if we take a look, we do have another error because we don't have this variable inside of our controller. So we need to open our controller and check. Okay, so here it's supposed to be set payment URL, because whenever we fail and we are going back, we need to set payment URL to an empty string so that whenever we retry, then we're getting a cleaner URL. Okay, so that's all that we need to do for that part, and then we save. As for success, we're going to do the same. First, we clear the imports, and here it's supposed to be orders controller, and then we import the controller itself, main dot, not main screen, not main dot dart. We're going to import the entry point. After that, we need to import constants. After importing constants, we're going to do the same for our height. So here, height, the spelling, you need to change the spelling to height. Okay. Down at the bottom, we need to import the reusable text widget, and we also need to import the app style. So after that, we are done. So if it is successful, okay, that's everything that we're going to show. Let's see. Okay, so here, when we are getting off auto main, we need to do the same. We need to access our controller, right? After accessing our controller, we need to set payment URL to an empty string like that. Okay, so that's how we are going to import these two pages and use them. Not the use case now. The use case, we need to go to the payment. Okay, so if our payment, the URL that we're getting from our backend has checkout successful, right? Has checkout successful, then we are going to go ahead and push this page. Okay, so as for this part, we can remove this. We can remove. Okay, we can remove because we want to clear the URL after we get to this page. Okay, because if we open, this is where we are going to clear our URL when we're getting off the payment failed page, not before we get to the page. Okay, so that's all that we need to do pertaining our failed payments and our successful payments, and how we are going to hook them to our payment page. Okay, so here, like, that's like from line 54 to line 61. Okay, so here we're just listening for changes in our URL. If the changes contain this part, checkout success, then we're going to push this screen. Else, if it contains cancel, then we're going to push payment failed. So that's all for that part. Next, we are going to just go ahead and run a test on payments, and we can just finish up integrating and doing everything in our controller. So the next thing that we need to do, we need to test whether we are getting the Stripe page to make a payment, right? So here, let's just take a look at a few things. Let's take a look at a few things before we proceed, and then we can just proceed. So in our home page, we need to go to home page views, home page. This is a home page, right? So we need to check the address here because we want to update this address automatically when a user is logged in. Right now it's updated, but it's not updating like the first time. Okay, so first we have to get to that's supposed to be the address controller. Not address controller, but a hook, the hook that we're using to get the address. Okay, fetch defaults. Okay, so when we are fetching default here, that's where we are going to set the address, right? And this is the address that we are reading and display over here. All right. So this hook should only be run when a user is logged in. So in our probably it should be in our app bar or in our home page. So if you go to common, we go to our custom app bar. Okay, so this is the address that we have to display if a user is logged in, but we have to get it somehow. So in order for us to get that address, what we can do, we can have a final instance of our box over here is equals to get storage. Right? Because we want to access get storage and check whether our user is logged in. If our user is logged in, then we are going to run the hook. But if that user is not logged in, then we're not going to run the hook. Okay, so that's the basic logic behind it. Because if we run that hook without a user being logged in, we're bound to get into an error. Not an error per se, it might not return the address. Okay, so that's one thing that we need to take a look at. So here we have to go to login controller. We need to check the value with which we saved our token with, because the token that's going to be our standard to check whether a user is logged in or not. So going to controllers, instead of our controllers, we have to go to login controller. Okay, so we've saved our token as token here. So we need to read this key. Okay, so here we're going to have consts, not const. I'm back to JavaScript. It's supposed to be a string. Okay, so this one can be nullable, and we're going to call it, let's just call it access token over here, is equals to a box.read. So we need to read this key, right, the token. And down below, we need to have a condition. If access token is equals to null, then we are going to do something. We're not going to do anything. If access token is not equal to, is supposed to be, is not equal to null over here, then we are going to go ahead and fetch default. It's supposed to be just fetch default over here. Okay, so we're going to run this every time so that we can get our address back. Okay, so we are done with our address. So what we can do over here, our primary goal was to just go ahead and test whether our payment system is working or not. So let's just go ahead and do that. So in here, we can just pick anything. that is closer to our address. Okay. So we can just place an order. Now we have our order page. We can continue to pay. We can proceed to payment since everything checks out here. Okay. So if you press proceed to payment, now we have our Stripe page to make a payment. So that's exactly what we needed. It's supposed to be a@a.com. And over here, we need to just have our card number. After our card number, we can have our expiring date and our CVC name. I'm just going to put anything random at this particular moment, and we're going to press pay. So we are processing the payment over here, right? After the payment is processed, we have a page that we just transferred in, right? This page, we didn't design this page, we just copy the page. So this is our successful payment page. Okay, this is what it looks like. So it will show the heading over here, payment successful, the order ID, payment ID. Not really, that one is a constant, but if you want to go ahead and implement a payment ID, that's on you. You can do it. Payment method, Stripe, amount. Here our amount is in dollars, but what we can do over here, let's just go ahead, just fix a little bit of some of the things that we might need to fix before we proceed. Order, payment, successful payment. So this is our page, right? So we need to go to, this is a constant. So you can put something, but for the amount, right? This is our amount. It's going to be grand total. Okay. So for this grand total, what we need to do, we need to convert it to string as fixed. Okay. And we need to have two decimal places after the comma. Okay. So that's what we got over here. And we have the date when the order was made. That's today. Yeah. Okay. So, and that's it. Let's just go ahead and close this. Yeah, okay. So we are done with our payment. So the next thing that we are focusing on is to get the orders and display them over here. Okay. So we need to create a page that we are going to use to just show all the orders. Okay. So in orders, we are going to create a new file and we're going to call it user orders. It has to be a .dot file over here. And we're going to create it as a stateful widget. Let's just call it user orders. And let's go ahead and import material. After importing material, here we can have a scaffold. After a scaffold, we're going to have an add bar and we're just going to have a body. Okay, so our body, we can remove this. We're going to have a background container. Okay, so we want to use our background container. Okay, so it takes a child and the color. So here, this is one of the mistakes that I made. Let's see, we have a child and we have a color. The arrangement is good over here, but the way it's coming here, a child should be after everything else, right? It should be the last. Okay, so here let's just go with K light white, and our child, let's just give it a container. Yeah, okay, like that. So we do have our page, but we need to hook our page to this particular, we need to hook it to this particular tile that we have over here. So what we can do, we can go to our profile. Okay, so inside of our profile, we're going to look for my artist, right? So here I was just redirecting to this page, but we need to get to user orders. Okay. Okay, I like that. So we can set transition and duration. So down at the bottom, we're going to have transition. So for transition, we can choose Cupertino, and for duration, we can use the same. We're going to go with 900 milliseconds. Let's add const over here. Okay, so we're done hooking this up. Let's get rid of this. And let's close this. Just try to zoom it up a little. Okay. So now if we click, we're redirected to the page that we just created. So what I want to do over here, I want to just change the color of the app bar. We just change the color of the app bar, and then we can come and style everything in here. Okay. But let's just do one thing. Okay. We're going to have a list string. Okay, our list string, we're going to call it orders lists. Okay, so since it's a list string, we're going to have, we need the orders, like, let's see. So I'm going to open one of the applications over here with okay, for the user. Let's see. It's going to take a little bit. We need to view the way the orders, okay. So we need to go to orders, my orders. Okay. Pending, paid, preparing. So that's the list that we need. Okay. Pending. Uh, I guess we don't need paid. Okay. We don't need paid over here. So we can have pending orders, the ones that are not paid for, and we can have preparing, right? Then delivering. And down at the bottom, we can have delivered. And at the end, we can have cancelled, right? Like that. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so that's what we need. So let's go back to this page. Let's change the color for bar to elevation. We need to make it 0, but our background color, let's go with K light white and see how it looks. Not bad, but bad. K off white. Okay, it should be K off white. Okay. And here on our title, we're going to use our reusable text widget. And we're just going to call it my orders. And let's go ahead and give it an app style. After that, our app style, we need to give it a size. Let's go with a size of 14. A color, let's give it K, not K primary, but we can try. And as for font weight, we're going to go with W600 for the meantime. So if we save, okay, that would do. That would do. That would do. Okay. So that's going to be our page. So we need to have a tab bar. Okay, a tab bar, because we need to be iterating through our list of all our orders. So and that's the next thing that we're going to do, and then we can finish up and open our common folder. Okay, let's just close everything before we open our common folder. So in our common folder, we need to create a new file, and we need to call it tab widget. Okay, and it has to be that file, and we need to create a stateless widget in here. Okay, and we have to give it a name, tab widget. Like that. We need to import material. After importing material, then we need to go ahead and handle whatever we are going to return in here. So we're going to return a container, and inside of our container, we're going to require a margin, right? Our margin is going to be agencies.symmetric. Yeah, we need to, not symmetric. Let's go with .0, okay? So that we won't have any margin, and we need to give it a width. So for width, we're going to go with media query dots of contexts. Okay, so we're going to go with width over here, media query of context dot size dot width. Okay, we need to get the whole width. And as for height, we need to give it a height of 15. And after that, we need to give it a child. Okay, so our child is going to be a text widget, but we need to put this text widget in the center. Okay, so we need to have a center first, and as our child, as the child of that center widget, we're going to give it a text widget. Okay, so our text widget is going to take in a string. Okay, so this string, we need to pass it as a parameter right on top. So here we're just going to just call it text, right? So right on top, we need to go ahead and create a final instance of this string that we just passed to our text widget, right? So the name is text, like that, and we need to close it over here. After closing, we need to edit to our formal parameters. After adding to our formal parameters, and then our error will go away. So we're done with this part. This is one of the widgets that we're going to use as our tab. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do, we need to go back to our user orders. In our user orders, right here, we need to not return, but we need to have a widget with, what do you call it, with ticket provider state mixing, right? So down at the bottom, we're going to have a let final tab controller. Okay, like that. So after that, we're going to give it a length, not a length. Here we're going to is equals to tab controller. Let's bring it down. Let's bring this down so that we can visualize everything. So we're not going to have an initial index, but what we're going to do, we're going to take the list that we created down at the bottom, right? So we can just get this list out of here. and put it in constants, right? We just paste the list over here. So that's the list that we're going to use here to determine the size of the length of our tab controller. Okay, so here we need to go ahead and return, let's try to return a column. Okay, so for a column, we're going to have a tab bar, and our tab views will come right below that. So first, we need to have children. So our first child is going to be a tab bar. That's something that we should take care of. So here we're going to have a tab bar. So a tab bar takes in tabs, but before we go to our tabs, we need to have our controller, and our controller is the controller that we just created right on top. It's scrollable, and we can set it to true. Okay. We can set it to true. Then we need an indicator. Okay. Supposed to be indicator. So an indicator takes decoration. So for decoration, not decorate. If it is decoration, it takes box decoration. Because if we have over here, right, it's of type decoration. If it's of type decoration, then it takes box decoration. Okay, so for box decoration, we're going to have a color, and we're going to have border radius. Okay, so we're going to choose those props. Let's see. We're going to have border radius. Our border radius is going to be circular, and here we need to give it a 25. And let's use screen utils. After that, we need to give it a color. We're going to go with K primary. And for a label color, our label has to be white. So we're going to go with colors.white over here, right? So that's it for our label. We need to give our label style. Okay. So for style, we're going to go with app style, and we need to give it a size of 12. For the color, let's go with K light white over here. And for the font weight, we're going to go with normal. So we can go with fw.normal. Okay, so we are done with these two. Next, we're going to have the one for unselected label. So if our label is unselected, it has to have like a different color to differentiate it from the selected one, right? Unselected label color, okay? So for the unselected one, we're going to go with K gray light. Let's go with K gray light. First, if there are any changes that we need to make, then we can make them in a little bit. Okay, so here our tabs is a list of widgets, right? So here I'm not going to do it the way that we usually do it, right? But I'm going to go with a list.generate because we need to minimize the lines of code that we write by any means possible. That's why I'm just going to go with this approach. So for our length is going to be our lists dot length, right? Then we have our index, and we are going to return something over here. So here we're going to return a tab widget, the tab widget that we just created before. And we're going to have our text. So our text is going to be order lists. Then we need to access the index. So I'm just going to give it I here. So if you make it as I here, you need to change here. Instead of index, then you just pass I. Okay. It's bigger than I thought. It's not coming out okay. We can play around with it for a few. So that means, let's see. It's the problem of the width that we gave it inside of our tab widget, right? So we need to divide this by 5. Okay. So that's what it is going to look like. Let's try to increase our height to 18. 18 would do, but not quite. Okay, 18.h, that would do. So back to our tab. Okay, so we need to remove this line that we have right at the bottom, right? So to remove the line, we're going to use this divider color prop, and we're going to give it a color. So we're going to make it transparent. Okay, so after we give it a transparent color, then it will go away. So that's going to be our list. But here we have to just go ahead and add a little bit of size right at the top to push it down a little. Okay. And we need to make it start from the beginning, not the center, because right here it's starting from where we don't want it to be. Okay. So we're going to fix that. We need it to start from like right at the beginning of this bezel, but with a little bit of padding, right? What we can do, we need to change the color, the background color. So let's go ahead, wrap this in a container, and let's give this container a color. Let's just give it something for now. Okay, that's exactly what we need, but not quite. Okay, so we need to have decoration, box decoration. So in our box decoration, we're going to have a color and we're going to have a radius. But this color that we have here, let's go with, we can go with color stock green. Okay. Let's go with gray, and we can give this gray a little bit of shade. So let's go with 200 to start with and see how it looks. So if it looks like this, then it's okay, but we need to push this to the start a little bit and give it a little bit of padding. Okay, padding, and we are going to make it symmetric. Let's remove the height. Not really, that's not padding, it's going to be margin. Not really, not quite. So we have to wrap this container. in a padding. Well, let's wrap it in a padding and see how it looks. Okay, and that's exactly what we need. So the last thing that we need to do here is to move this to the beginning, right? So we'll do that, and then we can deal with our what we call them, with our tabs, right? So what I'm going to do over here, I'm just going to extract this widget, and I'm going to call it orders tabs like that, right? We need to move them to a separate file. So in orders widget, like that. Let's save this and let's save that. We need to just minimize the lines of code that we're going to have inside of this. So we need to just separate everything. So far so good. So if we have over, let's see, the tab alignment. Let's go with tab alignment. So for tab alignment, we're going to go with tab alignment.start. Okay, probably the computer is getting a little bit slow, but we don't have an error though. It's supposed to be tab alignment. So I might need to restart the computer somehow in order for us to, okay. Now it's reading. Okay, so we do have this. Since we have this, probably we're going to need to get rid of this container. Okay, we get rid of the container and we have our tabs right here. Okay, that'll work. So next, let's focus on creating our tab bars and getting our data from our backend. So let's go ahead and close the tabs, close the constants, close everything else that we're not using at this particular moment. Orders controller, nope, we don't need that. Okay, we need user orders. Just get rid of the unused dependencies. So right at the bottom, we're going to have a size box. We need to create a little bit of space between our tab bar and our tabs, right? So we're going to have a tab bar. Not a tab bar, but we're going to have a tab bar view, all right? So a tab bar view, we need children. So for our children, we're going to, let's just have a container here. So we can have containers. Oh, they're supposed to be the same number as our length. Okay, it's this length. And at this particular moment, I don't even know the length. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to print order lists dot length. Okay, let's close that, save. So our length is 5. Okay, so here we do have an error. This error is because we didn't attach a controller to our table view, right? So we need to have a controller here, and our controller is going to be table controller. So if we just add the controller, save, and restart over here and revisit this page, it probably unbounded height. Okay, so we need to add constraints to this table size box, and then we give it a height. Let's give it a height of height times, we'll see, we'll figure it out, times 0.7. And let's give it a width, and we're going to give it a width of width. Okay, so let's save that and just refresh. Okay, so our error is gone. Just to make sure we can have a color dot red for the first one. So it's going to be red over here. We put green on the next one. So if we click on preparing, it's going to be green. If you click on appending, it's going to be red. Okay, but these ones we haven't done anything, so they're going to remain the same. So that's how we are going to render our orders, right? So that's it for this part. Next, we're going to focus on these widgets that we're going to be displaying over here. And we need to check whether we've taken care of our orders endpoint in our backend. If we haven't, then we can just go ahead and work on them. So the best way that we can go about it is to go ahead and just open the backend, place order. We have the function already, so that's all that we need over here. So we're going to just do it straight ahead because we don't need to touch anything in the backend since we already set up everything. Okay, so here we're just getting user orders. We're going to get them using the user ID and some query. Okay, so we're going to have payment status and order status. So here what we're going to do, probably we're going to have, in order for us to get pending orders, those are orders that have been created but they haven't been paid for. So the order status would be pending. Not the order, the payment status would be pending, right? So that's it for this part. And for the order status, we need to have our order model side by side and check our order statuses. So we have to have these statuses passed as query, the request queries, in order for us to get the orders. But whenever we're getting all these, we're going to make sure that our payment status is equals to complete. The only one that is going to have a pending status is going to be for the pending section, right? That's going to be this one. So hopefully it's understood. So let's go ahead and address one of the issue that I didn't address, like in our earlier videos. So the first thing that we need to do here, we need to address the address issue. Okay, so if we go to our main.dart, in our main.dart, first we need to initialize our get storage because I forgot to initialize it. That's why I was having a problem retrieving the token or like accessing the local storage. Okay, so after initializing, the next thing that we need to do, we now have to fix how we're getting the address here. So if we go to our customer bar, this is how we are getting our air bar. We need to check first whether we do have a token. If we have a token, then we're going to run the hook, right? So when we are running the hook, we need to write local storage whether that particular user has default address or not, right? So we go to our use fetch default. Use fetch default, when we are running this condition, right, that means if our status is 200, that means we do have an address, right? So we need to write a value inside of our local storage and set the value to true. So this is going to be our key. Our key is going to be default address, and we're going to set it to true. So after this is written in our local storage, that's the one that we're going to use to check whether we do have an address or not. If we don't, then we prompt the user to add an address, right? If the response status is not equal to 200, then we're going to write default address as false. And if we do have an error, we're going to write it as false as well. So after we are done with this, we need to go to our foot page, because if we visit our foot page here, we are checking first, and then we go to this page. So what we can do, we can just come here to our foot page. In our foot page, instead of having this condition, instead of fetching address, let's see, address, because we're using it here, instead of using this, we're going to use the value that we have in our local storage. Okay, so we're going to instantiate our box. So we need to create a final instance of our box, and this is equals to get storage. It's supposed to be storage over here. After that, we need to just close it. Okay, so we need to read a value. So our value is going to be a boolean. So for, let's give it the same name as the name that we use here. So we're going to call it address. Okay. Nope. Var address is equals to box.read. Now we need to read the value inside of our local storage. So here, to just minimize the errors that we might make, we need to revisit our hook, the hook that we use to get the default address, and then we copy the key name. After copying the key name, that's the one that we want to read over here. After reading, let's just go ahead and print the value. We're going to print address, right? So let's get rid of, okay, so our value is true because we don't have, because we do have an address already. Okay, we do have an address. So if we go back and come back, now we no longer have that page showing up because we're getting our data fast, like quick quick as possible, as quickly as possible, and then we jump to our scaffold. Here it was slow because we have to get our address from our backend, and then we run the scaffold if we do have an address, and if we don't, then we can redirect the user to the other this other page is equals to. So here, instead of now, we can say if it is equals to false, then we are going to go ahead and put on this. Otherwise, we're going to show this. Okay. But this is not the right approach to go about it anyway. So, okay, but we fixed that. What we can do, we want to use the same approach that we used for our phone number, to show a dialog box. A bottom sheet, not a dialog box. Okay. So here we go to our common. We have, this is our verification, show verification sheet, right? This is our sheet. So we need to go ahead, copy everything from this particular sheet that we created for our phone verification, and we're going to create one for our address. So we're just going to call it address bottom. You can call it bottom sheet. You can give it a name that you want. And it's going to be that file over here. Okay. So we're going to paste all the code that we copied from this dialog, from this bottom sheet. And we're this button, the button which is like right at the bottom, we are going to say go to and address. Okay, like that. And here we're going to redirect to, is it at address? Let's check the page that we're now is supposed to be shipping address, like that. Okay, so if we don't have an address, we're going to click on a button, and then we go to this page. Okay, so we need to make some few changes in here. Let's get rid of that, change the name, show address sheet. So everything else is going to remain the same. So here we can change the title to add address. And here at the list, you can have a list, a different list instead of this verification reasons. So you can create the same list, not the same list, but a different list. Probably I generated some before, so let's go ahead and see whether I can. Okay, we do have the list over here, reasons to addresses. Okay, so I'm just going to copy the lists, go back to our application, and then we go to constants. Instead of constants, we are going to paste this list down here, and we need to make it a little bit smaller. So we need 4, 5, like that. Okay, so these are going to be our reasons. So back to our bottom sheet. In our bottom sheet, we need to change the length to reasons to address, and we change this to reasons to address. Okay, so this is what's going to be shown in our bottom sheet. So after we are done with all this, we need to hook this bottom sheet to our foot page. That means we are going to get rid of this condition. We're going to get rid of this condition that we have right here on top. We're going to get rid of the condition. But before that, let's check one thing when we're creating an order. Like what kind of data are we sending to our page? Order item. Also need an address here. Okay. So either way, this hook should be run. So let's change address trigger. Change this to address trigger, and this condition, we're going to remove it for now. Okay. Okay. Here we are getting the address, but it's now, right? So this address, the one that we have over here, is required. We need to push the data to our order page. So this has to be there. It has to remain there. And down at the bottom, before we order, when we are checking our phone number, we should check as well whether we do have an address or not. If we don't, then we are going to prompt the user to, we're going to open the bottom sheet, and then the user can add the address. Otherwise, if they don't have the address, they aren't eligible to order anything. Okay. So if else user.phone verification is equals to false, then we're going to show this over here. We are going to say else if, and then we put our condition, we close it, address trigger is equals to false. Okay. We're going to show address sheet like that. So that's how we are going to do it. But we do have an address, so probably we're not going to see it. So what you can do, you can just get rid of the address and then you can run a test. But this is a way better way to do it rather than to have our condition the way that we had it in the first place. So let's just go ahead, just close the imports. So we are done with fixing our addresses and stuff. Okay, and still on our address, one other thing that we need to do, we need to make sure that we trigger our show address model if we don't have an address. Okay, so basically whenever we are going to run this hook, if we don't have a default address, then we should trigger the show address sheet, but it requires context now. So we need to pass context from wherever we are running this hook from, right? So each and every time that a user who's logged in and don't have a default address, when they open that page, then they are going to receive this bottom sheet first. Okay, so now we need to find out where we're using the hook. So the hook, we're using it in food page. Okay, but before, the best way to do it here, we can just have not really. Okay, that would be a recurring build context from here. Build context, okay, to make it easy. So here now we do have errors from wherever we are going to be, wherever we are running this hook from. So that's the food page for starters. So here we're going to pass context. And in our enter page, we're going to pass context as well, like that. So that's how we can do it. So if this user is logged in, but they don't have a default address, the first thing that will show, even in our home page, we're going to show this bottom sheet so that they can add an address first. All right. So that's it for that part. Let's see whether we do have an error or not. Yes, we do. Customer bar as well. Probably we should get rid of this. Or we can leave it. We don't want to. If it is okay, then we can get rid of this one. Since we are going to be running the same in our home page, it's pointless for us to have it in our customer bar as well. Okay. And so this one is not used. Let's get rid of all these. Okay, so that's it. Now we need to go ahead and create a hook to fetch our orders first, right? We're going to fetch our orders and then we are going to display that data inside of our page. Okay, so here we need to create a new hook and we're going to call it fetch orders, and it has to be that file. After that, we need to create a hook inside. So we already have hooks, so we can copy one of our hooks and make some changes to it. So let's just get any at this particular moment and we can make changes. It doesn't matter which one, but okay, it has to have like headers. We should have headers inside of our hook before we proceed. So we need to go to fetch orders, paste the code. Yeah, we're just going to say use fetch, then we're going to call it orders over here. Let's get rid of the controller. We don't need the controller. Let's get rid of that. You can just get rid of everything that's inside of our response. Get rid of that variable. Get rid of that other variable that we're storing in our local storage. Fetch orders, fetch data, use effect, fetch hook. We need to change the name. This one from addresses to orders. So that's going to be the name of our state variable. So now we need to have our endpoint. Okay. So we need to visit Postman. So in Postman, we're going to go ahead with our Foodly. Let's see, Foodly tutorial orders. Do we have get user orders? Okay. Payment status is equals to complete. Here, localhost 3000, localhost 6003. We don't have headers. Okay, we need a token. So we are printing our token inside of our application. So we don't need to log in Postman. We just need to copy the token from here. Go to our Postman. Instead of our Postman, we need to go to authorization. And then we're going to pick a bearer token. Environment is wrong. Foodly tutorial. That's the environment that we're using here. So let's just check. We have user token. Okay. So here we can use user token. So we just need to change this token to the one that we copy from our application. So we need to just change the current value. Initial value, it can remain the same. It has no problem. Okay, like that. So we're going to go ahead and just fetch orders with a payment status of complete. Okay. Let's go to body. Okay, we can try to send the requests. Probably our port number is wrong. So we need to check which port number are we using to run the application. That's in 6013. So make sure that your port number is the same to the same error. No, okay, we do have an error for so this is an error that we have. It's supposed to be request user.id. Where is this error coming from? Let's make this full screen. Was this supposed to be a request over here? Okay, now that we have our requests, let's go ahead and run the same request again. Okay, we don't have anything. Probably we did something wrong. Let's see how our queries, how we're handling our queries inside of our backend. Okay, so we have payment and we have order. This is a little bit weird. Okay, user ID if payment status is equals to payment status. Let's change this user orders. If we had this error before, so that means we're hitting the endpoint. That's not a problem, but we can go to our routers and figure out like whether we have some missing or not. Orders, so it's supposed to be a get API orders, and then our query get API queries. Then okay, let's go with order status is equals to pending, something like that. Okay, so if our order status is pending, we do have some orders. Order status is placed. We don't have anything. Order status and payment is supposed to be payment status is equals to paid. Not paid, but completed. So these are going to be our queries. For queries, you can use the easier way. You can just come here, write your key, and then your value. Okay, still not getting anything. So something that we need to figure out why we ain't getting the orders, right? So we need to take care of that. But for now, since we have, let's put it to pending here, pending. That's pending payment status and pending. We're going to have them both as pending. So probably with this one, we're going to get our data. Okay. So it has something to do with like the way that we're updating our data after payment. Okay. We need this list. Go to QuickType and create a model. After we create a model, then we can try to find out what's the problem, and then we can fix the problem together. Okay, so we can call this client orders. Which language is this? Enum ID. Which ID? It's supposed to be data over here. User delivery address. Okay, we should get rid of some of the values that we have. We don't want problems. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. How many items do we have? Okay, so now we do have one item. It's easier to deal with rather than to deal with a whole list. So in this list, we're going to get rid of this. We don't need ratings. We don't need the driver. So that's what it's going to look like. Green total. That's a huge amount. Price. Okay, everything is okay here. Okay. So once we copy, what we can do, we can go back to our application, not the backend, but our front end. That's supposed to be okay. This one, we can go to our models and create a new file, and we're going to call it client orders, and it has to be a .file over here. After that, we can just paste the code. After pasting, we can save, right? So now we have our data. We can go ahead and do whatever we want with the data. So here we're supposed to return a list, and this list is going to be a list of client orders, and it can be null. No, we cannot make it nullable. Let's initialize it as an empty list, and this will remain the same. So here we need to change the endpoint. Okay, so let's take it from here, and then we can see how we can make some changes to it. Back to our application over here, we need to replace this part. So these ones are going to remain the same like our queries, but we need to just pass these two values. Okay, so what we can do, so here we are going to pass, let's give it a name or a status. So we need to receive this status as an argument, right? From where we are going to use this particular hook. So here we're going to have a string, and we're going to give it a name or a status. So whenever we are going to input an order status, that order status is going to come here. And we need to do the same for our payment status. We can just call it payment over here. Let's just use understandable language. We just call it payment status. And here we also require another string with the name payment status. So if we have these two values, then we can go ahead and get our data here. So we can remove interpolation. We can remove the braces. Okay, and it's going to be a get requests. So if our status is 200, then here that's supposed to be, is this supposed to be data? Not data, but we need to set value inside. We need to set the data inside of these orders. Okay, so it's supposed to be orders dot value over here is equals to client orders from JSON. So we need to access the response.body like that. So that's all that we need to do. Everything else will remain the same. Which orders? Okay. So this is a stateful stateless. It's a stateful widget. It's a stateful widget. Okay, so we need to visit this page. We go to views. Inside of our views, we're going to go to orders. Inside of orders, use the orders, right? So we need to change this to a hook, stateful hook widget, if I'm not mistaken. I'm forgetting that's supposed to be stateful hook widget. Yes, I was correct. Stateful hook widget. We just need to import Flutter hooks, and then we handle our hooks in here. Okay. Nope. My bad. I made a mistake. We ain't supposed to change this page. Okay. This page is not supposed to change. It's supposed to remain the way it is. But we are going to create these widgets as hook widgets. So let's take, for example, the first one is to get pending orders, right? So we come to our orders. In our orders widget, we can create another folder, and we can just call it orders. In here, we need to create a new file, and we're going to call it pending, right? It's supposed to be pending.dart. So our pending.dart, we're going to make it a stateless widget. and we're going to give it a name pending. Like that. After giving it a name pending, then we just need to we need to import material. After importing material, we can convert it to a hook widget, right? Like that. After converting it, here, whatever we are going to return, right? We're going to return something here, but we need to call our hook in here, okay? So we're going to have a final instance, final hook results is equals to use fetch. We're fetching here, we're fetching orders, okay? So we need two parameters. The first one is going to be our order status. So order status is going to be pending, and our payment status is going to be pending as well. So there's one thing that I need to check is, well, in our backend, because we need to check the initial value that we're setting as default whenever we are placing an order. So if we visit our, okay, so here our defaults are pending, right? After an order has been paid for, it will move to complete and placed. Complete and placed. Okay. So this is the part that we need to revisit and rectify some of the mistakes, probably some of the mistakes that I made, and then we can just finish off. Okay. So pending, we're supposed to get the data. So the data that we're going to get is going to be a list of client orders, right? List of client orders. Now we need to give it a name, orders is equals to hook results.data, like that. Okay, so that's going to be our data. Right at the bottom, we're going to have final is loading. So if our data is loading, then we need to display a loading indicator, is it? So here it's supposed to be hook results dot is loading. Let's go ahead and close that. So now that we have these two, what we can do right at the bottom, we can have a condition if is loading, then we are going to display something here. So if our data is loading, then we're going to go ahead and return our food list schema, right? Like that. Okay. Else, we are going to have something else. So here we're going to return a container. In this container, we can leave it like that. We don't have to give it size, color. We don't need to give it color as well, but okay, let's go ahead and give it a height. For our height is going to be, let's go with height multiplied by 0. 0.8, and we're going to have a child. As for the child, we're going to have a list view builder. Should we have a list view builder though? Yeah, we can go ahead and just use a list view builder or a list.generate. Either way, the difference is the same. So we need an item builder and an item count. So first we need to take care of the item count. And for item count, we're going to use orders, right? Orders.length. So for builder, we're going to take context as well as the index. So here we're going to have the context and we're going to have our index. So we're going to pass our index as I, and we're going to return whatever we want to display over here. So let's say we want to display a container, right? So we're just going to have the container, but here we do have an error. Let's see where the error is coming from. If we get rid of this, we still have an error. Container. Okay, we have double brace over here instead of one. Double bracket instead of one bracket. Okay, so here, what we can do just to see whether we do have something or not, we need to just give this container a color. So our color, we're going to go with kdark. In our list view builder, we need to, no, we don't need to give it a scroll direction. We don't need to give it a scroll direction. So we are done with this. We're not done, but we have something that we can show for. So we can go to our orders page. Instead of displaying this container, now we can have our pending widget, right? And let's just go ahead and close it. So I'm going to press back over here before I save and then save, so that we won't have any errors. Okay, so if we go to orders, first we have our schema, then we don't have anything. That means our data is loading. We have data, but it's not showing. So what we can do over here, we need to, that's orders. We can print the length. Let's see. Let's give it a height of 230. Okay, we do have something. We do have something because we have our orders here, but we are not displaying them. So now that we have our orders, we can display in an order tile, right? We do have a tile already, but probably we can reuse it. So let's just try. Let's try. So our order tile require a food item. So here we're going to take our, let's just create a final instance. Final feed is equals to orders, and we need to access the index. After accessing the index, we need to go ahead and get the I suppose we do have order items, and we need to get the first item in that list. Okay, let's replace this index with an I. Let's go ahead and close it. So food is going to be this food. Dot food ID. Let's see. So we need to cast. Probably here we need to cast because we have two models with the same name, with the same properties, but we're using them differently. Let's see. I don't recommend casting, but we have to do it and see how it goes. Okay. That won't work. That won't. Yep. So here we need to create a new tile instead of using this order tile, right? But the properties are going to be the same. Okay. So what we can do, we can go to our widgets. We have our order tile, right? So we can copy this order tile, create a new widget, and we're going to call it client order. It's supposed to be client order tile, and it has to be a .dot file. Okay, well, let's paste the code, and we just need to change this from, we need to change the model, and we need to change the title. Okay, so let's start with the title first. From order tile to client order tile, and we change this to food ID. Okay, like that. So we do have errors over here. Okay, food, we do have an error. So let's go ahead and check whether we do have additives or not. We need to go ahead and check our model. Visit model, client model, order item, food ID. Okay, probably the one that we use don't have additives. So that's a mistake that we made when we're creating the order. So since we have our order here, let's see. Yes. So we should use, let's use this one. Let's close it and let's copy this one instead of using the item that we use, because the item that we use didn't have the list. But initially that list has to be now, not now, but an empty list. So that's okay. So if the length is 0, then we're not going to display anything. That will pans out okay. So here we just need to come back and replace whatever we have in here. Now we have our additives. Let's see, food ID. Okay, we're supposed to pass an order item. Let's copy it like this, and then we can go ahead and replace the one that we have. We can replace this. Okay, so for our tile, we ain't supposed to pass this food ID. We're supposed to pass the order item. It's supposed to be order item over here. That's the one that we're supposed to pass. Let's see. Order model. Nope, not from order model. Let's get rid of this order model. We need to import it from client. So now we need to access the image first. Okay, so the images are going to come from food ID item 0 and then image. Okay, like that. So we're going to do the same. We need to get the title dot food ID dot title. I doubt that we do have time over here, so it's not going to be delivery time. Let's just display instructions. We call them instructions over here. It's supposed to be instructions like that. And let's handle our additives. Okay, it's weird. Additives, it's a list string. So if it's a list string, this is correct. Okay, but the return value here is supposed to be a string. And here, if it is a string, then it has to be just additive. Okay, like that. So let's get rid of the unused packages. Same as, let's close that. Close, we go back to our pending. In our pending, so here instead of client order tile, okay, and here we are going to this order item, and let's get rid of this final, and then we save. Let's change this to a size box to get rid of the complaining lint and use packages. Okay, so that's what it is going to look like. So let's just go ahead and try to refresh it. Okay, go to my orders. Okay, so we have quite a lot of orders that are pending, that are not processed. So we don't have instructions here. We can see what we can display right underneath. So if we come here, we can go to, we can just have our quantity. I bet that would be okay. Food dot quantity. Okay, let's make it bold a little bit. So we're going to go with W600 over here. Okay, so that's going to be our list. So we need to go and make sure that we return for each and every tab that we have. Okay, but for client orders, we are done. So now the goal is to create one for preparing, one for delivering, one for delivered, and other one for canceled, right? So that's going to be easy to create those ones. What we need to do, we just need to copy everything that we have in here and we create new files. So the next one is going to be for preparing. It's supposed to be preparing. Paste the code and then we change the name 1P, not double P. Okay, so here we're going to leave it like this for now, since we need to go ahead and find out what's going on with our other orders. So we're done with the one for preparing. After preparing, we have delivering. Okay, so we create another file and we're going to call it, well, I'm not even writing, so this one, it has to be that file, paste the code. So we're done with that. We create another one for delivered file, paste the code and change the name. Okay, like that. Have it has to be that file is a little bit wrong, so you need to correct it. Paste the code, and here what we need to do, okay, so if it is cancelled here, then we have order status. So payment status is going to, so that's that's the data that we're going to get for that part. For delivered is going to be the payment status is order status going to be delivered. Delivering is a little bit tricky. We need to go ahead and visit our backend. So in our backend, we do have delivered, but delivering is out for delivery, right? That's going to be our order status. For pending, we already have. For preparing, then preparing is going to be not ready, but payment status is going to be complete. Okay, so let's just go ahead and close these. After closing, we need to hook them up to our page. So pending, the next one is preparing, right? Okay, so done with that. Let's go to the next one. Our next one is going to be the other one, and the last one is going to be cancelled, like that. So we are done. This const, we have to move it up like that. So no longer complaining. So we have every widget that we need, but the task is now to go ahead and figure out like how can we get the data. So let's go to, not really. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open the payment server somehow, and then we can see how we can or like why, what was the reason behind us not getting our orders, right? Because if we paid for something, let's say we do have an order, right? Let's just order something. These are restaurants. This image is a little bit off. Let's go with this. Okay, so let's say we have this one, right? And we order this. We make a payment. If we make this payment, then this order should appear to preparing, right? All 42s, random number, and we put random CVC name. I'm going to put anything random. So if this payment is completed successfully, then we should have this order inside of our preparing, but we are not getting anything. So that's a little bit odd. Session, what we want to do, we want to focus on payments. So the payment server is provided to you already. So we just want to run a few things before we get to that part whereby we can make a payment and we can see whether they're successful or not. Okay, so let's see. What do I have here? Okay. So what I'm going to do over here, I'm going to go back to the folder that has our code, right? That should be one of these folders. Man, not even this one. Let me see. Okay, that photo should be on the desktop. That contains our assets. Okay. Okay, so this is the folder that we're looking for, right? So we need to, not payment. Let's see. Okay, we have this payment. This payment, fully Flutter payment master. Okay, so let me just run you through the process using the one that I provided rather than the one that I changed. Okay, so I'm just going to extract this. So this is our server now, right? So now that we extracted our server, we can go ahead and create a new window. After creating a new window, we drag and drop the payment server in here. Okay, so we have our payment server. Okay, so first we need to install dependencies. So we should go ahead and open the terminal. After opening the terminal, we're going to run the command npm I, right? So our dependencies are going to install. But one thing before you continue, what you should do, you should provide your database URL here and your Stripe secret. Please, these ones are mine. So you should use yours. Okay. Otherwise, if you run into an error whereby your items are not updating, it's because you're using my database, not your own database. Because your food items are in your database, so you should use your database. All right. So now that we're done with this part, the next thing that we should do is to go ahead and open our index.js, right? So in our index.js, we have quite a lot of things, but we just need to clean it up a little bit because we're not going to be using most of the stuff here, okay? So this part, we are going to be using it. So we are going to leave it like that. But coming down in our if statement, we need to get rid of most of the stuff, okay? So we're getting rid of everything up until, let's see. Yes, let's get rid of everything. After getting rid of everything, we need to go ahead and save this data, okay? Because we are updating our payment status to completed, and we should go ahead and update our order status as well, if I'm not mistaken. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open this one up, not this one. We're going to open payment server. I'm just going to check something. Okay, so this is how we should update. We should update our order status to placed as soon as the payment is completed. Okay, so going back to our previous save, that's the Flutter Fully payment, right? Let's see. That should be this one. Okay. So over here, we're updating the payment status and the order status. And then we're going to updated order dot save. Okay. That's all that we need to do over here. So we just cleared everything. We just cleared everything. So that here, when our order is updated, we can save it. So the most important thing is to have our endpoint secret. Now we need to go back to Stripe. So I'm just going to run you through how to get the to get the secret key and the endpoint secret. Okay, so basically if you go to Stripe, what we are going to do, you go to developer. In developer, to get the key. Oh, that's not API key, is it? Okay, the secret key, you're going to get it from here, so you can just review and copy the key. That's the key that you need to put in your .env file. Okay, you need to replace this key with your own key like that, and then you save. And as for our endpoint secret, what we need to do, we need to go back to our Stripe, and in our Stripe we need to go to webhooks, and in our webhooks we need to go ahead and add another webhook. Okay, but for now I'm going to run my server locally. I'm not going to run it from from Railway. Okay, I'm not going to host the server. So what I'm going to do, go back to the server. I'm going to change a few things. The first thing be the port number. Okay, so I'm going to make this port 3018. So that's this port that we're going to use to run our server. So after running our server, we need to, after changing the port, and save. Okay, here it might come from .env, so we need to do the same. So in our env, we need to change the port number and save as well. We need to start the server, npm start. So our server is running. After our server is running, we need to just start ngrok. So if you don't have ngrok, what you need to do, you need to just go on Google or your favorite browser, favorite search engine. Then you will need to install ngrok. So for me, I'm using Mac OS. So I'll pick Mac OS. If you're using Windows, you can do the same. After installing, you need to go to step 2. You need to add a token. Okay, so this token, you will get it when you create an ngrok account. Okay, and I guess that's all that you need to do. Install, then authorize. After authorizing, then you need to copy the third step, which is ngrok http. Then you put the address of your server. Okay, in my case, I'm running the server on port 3018, so that's going to be my port number. It's supposed to be http localhost 3018. So here, if I paste this, I'm going to remove the port number and put 3018. Okay, so I have another server running on ngrok, so I need to go ahead and stop it so that it can be successful, because my account is limited to one server. Okay, so let's go back. We are going to stop this server for now. Let's stop it here as well. Let's go back to the server that we are setting up, which is this server that we have right here, and we run the code again. So now our server is running on this endpoint, on this URL. That's the URL that we need to copy. Why are we doing all this? Because like when we are using Stripe webhooks only accept HTTPS, not HTTP. So if we try to use HTTP, then our server is going to be on HTTP 127.0.1. That's going to be our local host, of which with the current setup that we have, we won't be able to get a response from Stripe whenever we try to initiate a payment. So we need to copy this endpoint, right? And we go to our Stripe. In our Stripe, we need to paste this URL, and then here we need to specify our endpoint, which is webhook, like this, webhook. Okay. After that, we need to go ahead and select events. Okay, so we're going to select multiple events. Balance, not balance. Cashback, not cashback. Charge. Okay, checkout. Customer. We also got, what do you call it? Payment intent. We need to select it. Let's just select quite a few. Okay, I guess that's pretty much all that we need to do. Okay, let's add these events. After adding these events, we need to add an endpoint. Okay, so that's going to be our endpoint. Now we need to copy the secret, the signing secret of this webhook endpoint. Okay, after we copy, we go back to our server. So this is our server. So we need to replace this key with the key that we just copied, paste it over there, and we need to go to routes. That's supposed to be routes, Stripe, and here we need to use this URL instead of using the URL that we have over there. Okay, so that's the URL that we're going to use. Okay, like that. So our server is running. What we need to do now, we need to copy the endpoint. So our endpoint is supposed to be this URL that we have over here, and then we're going to want to access this endpoint, and then we are going to access this endpoint as well. So going back to our Flutter application, which one is it? Nope. Okay, that should be it. So we need to put our endpoint here, or URL, over here. All right, Stripe, and then checkout. Okay, so now if we try to make a payment, we're going to, let's just run a test and see how it goes. If there are any changes that we need to make, then we can go ahead and make them. Okay, so here we need to put back our simulator. Go back to our home page. In our home page, let's just pick something. Let's pick this tropical fruit smoothie. Okay, add some additives, maybe 3. Then we place an order. So if we click here, okay, now our Stripe is working fine. Okay, so we need to add an email. So it's supposed to be a@ whatever. You can put whatever you want. a.com, and our card, since we're in test mode, is supposed to be 42. Here we can put anything. CVC, we can put anything. Name, you can put anything. For the code, you can put anything as well, and then you can disable this save info, blah 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 blah. You can just disable that, and you can proceed to make the payment. So here, if we visit our server, okay, everything is up to par. Okay, everything is up to par, everything ran well. So here our endpoints, webhook checkout success 200, webhook 200, everything 200. So if we go back to our Flutter application, we get our success page. We need to close that. After closing, now we need to go and check. So the order that we made was $12.99 for a smoothing. That order should be in preparing. Okay, $12.99. This is the order for the smoothie. Okay, so that's how we just do everything pertaining payment. Okay, so from this part, now that's going to be the restaurant and courier part, to make this to move from preparing to delivering, from delivering to delivered and cancelled. This is the restaurant part. Okay, so let's say your payment failed. If the payment fails, then the order is going to come under pending. So if an order is under pending, what you can do, I'm not going to do it, but what you can do, what I suggest you to do, you can try to initiate a payment from here, from the pending page, so that a person can just complete their payment from the pending page, rather than to try to add the same product, to try to order the same product over and over again. Okay, so that's all for this part. You might not payment server per se, but there's an error that might cause an error originating from the backend server that might cause an error in your payment server. So it's related to our driver ID. So what you need to do, you don't need to pass it as an empty string. So what you can do here, we require a bison, not a bison, a bison. That's an ID provided by Mongo. So you can go to your database, copy any ID, and just put it here. So the numbers has to match, like a MongoDB ID. Okay, so that's what you need to do. If you do that, and then when you make a payment, you won't have an error. So if you make a payment, then this is your logs, the logs that you get. If you don't have an error here, then your application is running fine without any problems. Okay, so we want to just make a few adjustments as we go. Okay, like when you run the application for the first time, probably you might run into this kind of error, not for the first time, but when you're trying to get your restaurants, and this is related to the rating. So what you need to do, you need to go ahead and visit the model. Okay, so what I'm going to do over here, I'm just going to comment this out for a little bit so that I can print the error. Okay, so I'm just going to restart the application. So this is the error, right? Double is not of subtype, is not a subtype of type int. So we need to visit this particular model that we have over here. Okay, so this is our model. So what we're looking for an integer, right? So this is where we have our integer. So if we look at every item that we have, every type that we have strings, we got booleans, we got lists, but we have one integer. So that's the integer that we want to change to just solve the error. Okay, so we're going to change it to double. Okay, so that's the first step. Whenever we're getting this number, we're going to get it as a double, and we need to convert it. So like in the database, we might have this number as an integer, right? So when we're getting it as an integer, we must convert it so that it can fit this criteria. Okay, so let's say, for example, here in our database, we have the number 3. So the number 3 is automatically an integer. So when we get that number back, when we retrieve it from the database, we should convert it to double first. So this is the function that the method that we use to get our data from our database, right? So this is the key that we have in our database, all right? So we need to convert this to double as well. So if we are getting an integer, it's going to be converted first to a double, right? So that it can fit the criteria that we set right here on top. So if we save and just hot restart, we are not going to run into the same error. Okay. So that's it for the rating part. So here we can get rid of this print and we can bring back this exception. Right now we do have some kind of change that Firebase have implemented when it comes to authentication. So by the time that you're trying to run this application, you might run into an error whereby you cannot like authenticate using a mobile number. So what I'm going to try to do is to run you through the process of how to make it work. Okay. So the first thing that we need to do, we need to go ahead to our pub.dev. In our pub.dev, we are going to look for this package, the Firebase app checker. Okay. App check, the Firebase app check. Okay. So you just look for this package and then you're going to just go ahead and copy the installation command. You go back to your application, and in your application, what you need to do, you need to install the package. That's the first thing. So let's go ahead and do that. This is our application. Nope, this ain't our application. So our application should be this one. So first you go to the terminal and you install the package. I've already done that, but I'm going to do it again. Okay, so it already exists. So you might face two problems, not two problems, but one problem, whereby after you installed this package, then you will receive an error like this. So in order for you to counter this error, what you need to do, you need to go to your iOS folder. Okay, in your iOS folder, you can first delete the log file, right? You delete the log file. After that, that's pod file.log. Okay, you delete this file. After deleting the file, you need to go to the pod file, and in the pod file, you need to enable this platform because initially it's commented out. Commented. Okay, initially it's not active, so you just need to activate it. Okay. After activating it, you just leave it like this. We're just going to go with iOS 12, right? And after activating it, you need to come to your terminal. In your terminal, you need to cd into iOS folder. Okay, after cding into iOS folder, then you need to install the pods. Okay, so you can copy this command, pod install, or you can just type it. Okay, so in order for you to run this pod install, you have to be inside of the iOS folder, iOS directory, and then you just hit install. Okay, so it's going to install all the packages. Yeah, so I've already done that, so it's not going to take a lot of time. As you see, it's already finished. So let's go ahead and clear the terminal. After clearing the terminal, let's close the pod file. The next thing that we need to do, we need to come to our main.dart. Okay, so in our main.dart, this is the code that we want to add to our main. Okay, so right after in our main.dart, after our main method, after initializing Firebase, we need to add a condition. Okay, if it is not debug mode, okay, debug mode, then we are going to run this. Okay, we're going to await for Firebase app checker dot instance dot activate. So here, this part is the part that we need to take care of in our Firebase console, because we need to provide some kind of a key, okay, in order for application to run. This part is the only part that we're going to take care of. Else, if our application is in debug mode, then we're going to use a Android provider.debug, as well as for Apple, we are going to do the same. Okay, so let's come back, save this, and we try to run our application. While you're waiting for application to run, what we are going to do, we are going to go to our Firebase console like that. Okay, at the same time, we need to take note of the changes that we're going to see over here. Okay, so wait for it to run first, and then we can complete everything. But let me just run you through what we're going to do in our Firebase console. In our Firebase console, we need to go to our console and open the application that we hooked our application to. Okay, in this case is this application, right? So in this application, you need to go ahead and activate app checker. App check, not app checker. And you need to come to apps. Okay, so you have your apps over here. So for Android, this is what you get. So you need to register your application. After registering your application, you can come over here and manage, and click on manage debug token. That's the token that we are going to get from this part when this application is ran. Okay, so let's see, it might not. So there's a possibility that the token won't be sent again, because this application has been, the token has been updated already. Let's see whether the token will come out. It's taking a little bit, so let's wait for it. Okay, so this is the token, right? This is the token. This is the token that we are talking about. So you copy this token and you go to your Firebase. After you go to your Android application, right? Android, iOS, whatever application that you're using, then you go and manage debug token, and then you add the token. All right, you give the token name and you add the token over here. Okay, so that's all that you need to do. After that, you can go back to your application and then run a test to see whether your authentication is working or not. So here I've hooked my bottom sheet over here. So you can hook the bottom sheet wherever you want to. If you haven't hooked it, then you can do it the proper way. I did this just for a test purpose. So coming down here, you need to verify number, right? So I'm going to go ahead and use my real number. So I'm going to go ahead and China over here, and I'm going to add my number 0677333135, and I'm going to send. Okay, so now we're successfully sending sending the code to the number. Okay, so here we just need to complete the recapture. We do have a bridge. Okay, there should be a bridge as well. Okay, let's verify that. So our code has been sent. So let me take a look. With I do have, okay, I do have a code over here. So I'm just going to agree. After agreeing, then I need to enter the code. So the code is supposed to be 512350. Okay, and verify and login. Okay, so here, let's see, 10, 23, 10. Okay, the SMS code has expired. Resend and try again. So that means our code is working fine. It's just a matter of like the code has expired or something. So this is all that you need to do to get the code and just verify it. So I'm not going to send the same code to my device. What I'm going to do to just run the tests, instead of using the phone, I'm going to use the test code, the test number that I do have, the test number that I set up in our in the Firebase. Okay, so that's 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 0. Okay, press send. So the process is the same. Stairs. Okay, that'll do. Agree. The code should be 1 2 3 4 5 6, if I'm not mistaken. Let me go back to authentication method for number. Okay, 126. That's the number that I need over here. So I'm going to enter the number. Okay, and verify the number. So here everything worked out correct. Okay, so that's how you like, that's the new way of doing like phone authentication using Firebase. So let's just go through it again. So the first thing, that's installing the package. The second thing, go to main.dart, add these lines of code, right? If your application is not in debug mode, then you need to use play integrity. What does play integrity do? Play integrity checks whether the device that the application is running on has Play Store or not, right? If it has Play Store, then it verifies that device as an original device, like an Android device. But since we are using a simulator, our options are going to be here. Okay, we're going to be using the debug key that we got from our Firebase, which is the key that we have over here. Okay, to make the authentication code. Okay, so that's all for this particular part. If you have any problem, then probably you won't run into any problems, because that's the way it's supposed to be done now. That's a new change, because when we started the application, it was working well, fine, without any problem. But the Google team changed the way that we do authentications. Thus, well, we have this change that we have to make in order for us to have a successful authentication.